Hey everyone. So, I don't know if I'm gonna do this again, but after last night, I wanted to get on here and just make a video reacting or my reaction to the Chiefs and Jets game. As a Jets fan, as you all know, I am a little biased, but I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna step away from my bias as much as I can, and just give you what my thoughts are, um, on based on how the Jets played and where the Jets are now. Okay. So we're going to talk about the controversy at the end of this video. But I want to get this out first. The Jets offense missed some opportunities. Absolutely. 100%. Zach Wilson missed some throws. No matter how good he was amazing, by the way. And when I say amazing, he was better than I've ever seen him play. And that's the quarterback we're looking for. But with that said, he did fumble the ball at the end of the game, which again, I'm not blaming him for the loss, but he did miss a throw to Garrett Wilson on a go route that was a touchdown that he had 2 steps on the cornerback, and he did miss a throw to our tight end, which to be fair, the tight end could have caught it, but it was a hard throw to catch. The tight end probably should have caught that, but again, not the best of throws, so on and so forth. So there were missed opportunities. If we make those opportunities, we win the game. There's no shadow of a doubt. Because if you look at that game without any context and without any names on the jerseys, the Jets were the better team than the Chiefs, and there's no doubt. And I don't think anyone would disagree. That night specifically, if you just look at that night with no context, and you don't know Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, and Zach Wilson's the quarterback, and Chris Jones is on the other side, and Sauce Gardner is on the other side, and it's just blank jerseys with blank faces, I think everyone would agree that the Jets were the better team that night. The Chiefs are a great team, though, and great teams find a way to win even in their worst of days. Do I think the Jets are a better team than the Chiefs? Absolutely freaking not. But that night they were. Fine. With that said, the defense also shouldn't have let up 17 points in the beginning. Now, in my opinion, if you hold the team to 23 points in the entirety of the game against the number one quarterback in the league, and it's not close right now because Joe Burrow is injured, so it's not even close. He's the number one quarterback in the league. He has the best tight end in the league and one of the best receivers in the league if you include Travis Kelce as a tight end. He has a great young running back in Isaiah Pacheco who ran all over the Jets defense. But with that said, all in all, you held them to 23 points. They shouldn't have let up 17 in the beginning. It put us in a hole, but Zach Wilson came up and rise to the occasion. Also, I love our kicker, but our kicker missed a field goal that he should have hit, which also hurt us as well. With all of that said, the Jets did not play perfectly. I get it. They played really well, but they did not play perfectly. They could have won the game themselves and kept it out of the refs' hands. With that said, I understand that the refs were a problem last night. And not just for the Jets, for the Chiefs as well. That horse collar was not a horse collar in Breece Hall. I will say that right out. As a Jets fan, I will say that right up. That wasn't a horse collar. That face mask, I believe, was a safety. That should have been a safety. I looked at that. I believe it is. I don't think that was the wrong call. I can understand why people think that should maybe be at the 1 yard line, whatever. I think that was the right call. I think it was a safety. The holding call miss on Jermaine Johnson on that or not on Jermaine Johnson, but they were holding Jermaine Johnson on that 3rd and 22 is one of the most obscene missed calls I've ever seen. And that would have been offsetting penalties. It would have been 3rd and 22 again. And I understand that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback and he might be able to convert that. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't, but I would bet on my defense on that play, on the Jets defense on that play, 100%. I don't think they're going to let up 3rd and 22s twice in a row. I don't believe that. If anyone could do it, it would be Patrick Mahomes, but I don't believe that would happen. Okay. And then later on, Sauce Gardner, that was. And look, it might be a penalty. It might be. I don't think it is, but it might be a penalty if you just look at that one play. But the Jets defense and the Chiefs defense were hand fighting all night. They were, when people were moving directions, they had hands on shoulders, so on and so forth. It wasn't called. It was rarely called. They were letting them play. There were a few calls here and there, but most of the time it was rarely called. And that was the most Ticky Tack penalty call I've ever seen. I don't actually believe that's a penalty. It's close, though, and the people that say that it is, in just the vacuum, I'm not going to disagree with. Which I did disagree on Twitter, but, like, this is a video coming out after I'm not as emotional about it. The refs played a big part in that game. The Jets could have won the game by themselves on their own 2 feet 100%. It shouldn't even have come to that. I agree. But with that said, the refs played a huge part of that game, and there was always missed chances in every football game. At the end of the game, the refs shouldn't have called that penalty. I truly believe that, especially with the way the game has been played throughout the game and the way it's been called throughout the game. Now, I agree that a penalty, no matter what the penalty is, penalties don't change in the end of the game or the beginning of the game. Like, this is a penalty at the beginning of the game. That's it, but it's not a penalty at the end of the game because it's the end of the game. I don't agree with that at all. A penalty is a penalty. But if you look, and again, I'm repeating myself, but if you look at the way the game was called throughout the game, it's not a penalty. It isn't, and there's no argument. And that Jermaine Johnson miss, that was the most egregious thing I've ever seen. But that's the most egregious. You know what? I'm going to correct myself. That is the most egregious thing I've ever seen since the who got screwed? The Saints got screwed in the playoffs with the pass interference that wasn't called. That's the most egregious since that, because that's the most egregious thing I've ever seen in an NFL football game. Because that's the most egregious penalty in the world. And the funny thing is, that wasn't called because it was the end of the game. And in this situation, that Ticky Tack call, which might not even be a penalty, was called at the end of the game. That's the inconsistency that drives all NFL fans nuts, and I think all NFL fans would agree on that. Now, just going to the Jets really quick. If Zach Wilson plays close to what he played like last night, the Jets are a playoff team. They're 1-3. They make the playoffs if he plays close to what he played with like last night every game moving forward. Again, I'm not saying he's going to. I'm not saying that it's I was a Zach Wilson hater for a while now. If Nathaniel Hackett calls plays like that, where he's going 3 steps back and throwing the ball within 2 seconds every time, and just going through his progressions and not staring down receivers, which he did do some of that last night, but like, and is decisive. That's the biggest difference. He was decisive. We can live with interceptions here and there and mistakes here and there if he's being decisive and he's being aggressive. He looked like he deserved to be on that field for the first time in I don't know how many games. The way he took blame at the end of the game, which I don't actually agree with him, but it shows growth within him as a person. If he plays like that against Denver, there is no excuses. There's no excuses anymore. There's no reason we lose to Denver. There's none. If we lose to Denver, everything is forgotten. I don't care how well Zach Wilson plays, which obviously things are not forgotten for Zach Wilson, because if Zach Wilson lights it up and our defense falls flat, that's a whole different story, and they're not making the playoffs. 100%. 1-4, they're not coming out of that hole. But you're not going to tell me that if they play like they did last night, that they should 100% beat Denver. If Zach Wilson does what he did last night and the defense plays the way they've played all year, Denver shouldn't even be a question. So that is the first step. If that happens, then we can talk about the Eagles. Then I think we have a chance to beat the Eagles. Do I think the Eagles are favorites? 100%. But if we're going into a bye 2-4 and we play a close game with the Eagles, and then it softens up a little bit our schedule, do I think we could be 6-6 or 6-7 going into those coming weeks? Absolutely. And that means we're in playoff contention. We're in a bad spot because we're 1-3, but if the Jets played holistically, if they just play the way they did, all of them play the way they did last night, and maybe Zach Wilson takes a half step back from last night, but he's still so much better than he was the first few weeks and the end of last season, we make the playoffs 100%. And I 100% agree with that. But I don't know. Maybe this is a blip. Maybe this is a fluke from Zach Wilson. I hope not. But if it isn't, and this is where he's going to be moving forward, and this is the way Nathaniel Hackett's going to call the offensive scheme moving forward, and then the defense is going to get energized, is not going to be on the field as long as they were, especially against the Cowboys and against other teams, there's no reason the Jets aren't a playoff team. They're not winning the Super Bowl, but there's no reason they don't make a wild card slot. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll do more of them if you guys like it, and we'll Have a great week and enjoy Monday Night Football.